Welcome to it, Rise and Shine on this Monday, the 2nd of February, with me, Asanda Beda. I'll be riding solo on this Monday. Our colleague Peter Ndoro is not with us today and tomorrow, but a lot coming up on the show. We've got a few stories to cover, and we are together for the next 3 hours. You connect with us on channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app via mobile phone, as well as on Channel Africa 1, at Channel Africa 1, that's our social media handle. So we are live streaming on YouTube. Find us on all the various social media platforms. We welcome your questions and your comments about our show and Channel Africa in general. From the African perspective, we bring you news and current affairs in this particular morning show. And in this hour, we look at Kenya's High Court, which has dismissed a long-running legal challenge that sought to hold the government responsible for alleged security failures surrounding the 1998 bombing of the United States Embassy in Nairobi. And Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema has urged African Union member states to demonstrate stronger political commitment to long overdue institutional reforms. Those stories and more coming up on this hour of Rise and Shine, of course coming to you from our Johannesburg studios in South Africa.
Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app.
Nkhanza zokhudza amuna ndi azimayi kapena kuti gender-based violence, GBV, zikuwononga mioyo komanso kuphwasula midzi. Zikuchitika m'manyumba, m'masukulu, malo ogwirira ntchito, ndipo kwambiri mwakachetechete. Koma sizikuyenera kupitirira. Mukazimva, yankhulani. Ngati mwakhuzidwa, funani chithandizo. Chifukwa kusachita chilichonse sikuthandiza. Mverani kuma wireless onse 10 asanu ndi anayi a SABC kuchokera lachitatu pa 23 mwezi uno wa Julayi kuti mumve zokambirana, malangizo, masewero, zionetsero za maphunziro ndi mafunso okhuza nkhanza za amuna ndi azimayi ndi akatswiri, anthu opulumuka ku nkhanzazi, kukhazikitsa lamulo komanso dziko lonse lokhuzidwa ndi nkhanzazi. Zonsezi pa wireless yomwe mumayikonda ya SABC. Imbirani pa nambala 0800 428 428 kuti munene za nkhanzazi kapena kupeza chithandizo. Nkhanza zokhuza amuna ndi azimayi zimatha ndi inu. Kutenga ukufikani kuchokera ku SABC.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
So after the 6 a.m. news here on Rise and Shine, we bring you a segment of the show we call the Africa Roundup. It is a list of stories that you may have missed that you need to catch up on, and it's compiled by our team of researchers, our reporters and editors to make sure you know what you need to know about our continent and around it. And today's roundup, or Africa Roundup, starts with Niger's military ruler, Abdourahmane Tiani, who has accused the leaders of France, Benin and Ivory Coast of backing an attack on Niamey's international airport. He did not provide any evidence to support the claims. Blanche Ankler reports.
We remind the sponsors of these mercenaries, notably Emmanuel Macron, Patrice Talon, Alassane Ouattara. We have listened to them bark enough. They should also prepare to hear us roar.
Niger State TV reported that one of the assailants killed was a French national, though it offered no proof. The offices of the 3 presidents could not immediately be reached for comment. TNE also thanked Russian troops stationed at the base for defending their area. Satellite imagery showed damaged buildings and facilities at the army base after the attack. The incident briefly raised security concerns around the airport, a sensitive site in a country grappling with militant violence.
Paramilitary fighters are reported to have kidnapped children during their takeover of the Sudanese city of Al Fasher late last year, as well as in other attacks across the Darfur region during Sudan's civil war. Witnesses told Reuters that in some cases, parents were killed before the children were taken. Emma Jelly reports.
The war, a power struggle between the RSF and the Sudanese army, has killed tens of thousands of people and led to famine and disease. The United Nations describes the humanitarian crisis in Sudan as the largest in the world. And the stories of abduction and enslavement gathered by Reuters may violate international laws and may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity, legal experts said. Reuters spoke to 26 witnesses in person or on the phone after they had fled to the North Darfur town of Tawila, or to eastern Chad. In total, they described 23 separate incidents since 2023, where at least 56 children were taken, the youngest 2 months old. Children who resisted were beaten with guns or held at gunpoint, witnesses said.
The leader of a Congolese rebel coalition that includes the M23 group has called a deal between Kinshasa and Washington over critical minerals in the conflict-hit region deeply flawed and unconstitutional, raising questions over whether it can be implemented. David Doyle has more.
Corneille Nangaa, who leads the Alliance Fleuve Congo that includes the M23 group, was speaking from the rebel-held eastern city Goma. It's been a year since M23 captured the city of more than 2 million in what was eastern Congo's biggest escalation of fighting in years. Nangaa says the rebels have made Goma a secure city.
There are no more armed bandits. You will no longer hear gunshots in Goma, as was the case before.
In addition to Goma and eastern Congo's second-largest city, Bukavu, the rebels' lightning offensive last year captured major mining zones. Most of eastern Congo's key minerals, such as coltan, now lie in areas held by M23. And that's why Nangaa's criticism of the US-Congo minerals deal that was signed in December casts doubt on its implementation.
Also in that country, at least 200 people have died after a landslide struck a mining site in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The site in North Kivu province is controlled by the M23 rebel group. Chris Ochamringa reports from Kinshasa.
A heavy downpour lashed the Rubaya mining site in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, causing the mines to collapse. Several artisanal miners were buried under the mud and rubble. The M23 rebels controlling the site say they've recovered 200 bodies. Fears are rising that the death toll may increase as rescue efforts continue. Several injured miners have been taken to local health centers for treatment. The Rubaya mine has huge deposits of coltan, which is used to make components for smartphones and computers. Heavy rains have caused numerous floods and landslides in the DRC over the past 3 years. The rebel-appointed governor of North Kivu province has ordered a suspension of artisanal mining operations at the Rubaya mining site. Chris Ochamringa, Kinshasa.
Egypt's historic Alexandria tramway will stop running as authorities begin an overhaul of the century-and-a-half-old line. The trams will be replaced by a digitally controlled light rail system which could double speeds, cut journey times and increase capacity. Some commuters welcome the upgrade while others fear congestion, higher fares or delays.
It's painful. Not everyone will understand. How do I feel? I can't describe it. It's painful. Not everyone will understand except those living with us or those who have experienced similar situations. When it is your home and your life for 30 years and you wait to be told at any moment that your home will be demolished or your place was removed or taken away, of course this is painful.
I'm 62 years old and since I was born I've been riding it. I want to know, if you remove it, it's fine to renovate it but leave something, a memory for Alexandria that we can look back at and say this was in Alexandria.
And that's how we end today's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll do this again tomorrow here on Rise and Shine after the 6 a.m. news. Still to come, though, we get our Roundup rep and delving deeper into some of the stories we've touched earlier, as well as others that you need to get in the know about. We'll be joined by our resident analyst for that conversation, Mighty Jamie.
Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za. As Africa renews, so does its voices. 60 years of Channel Africa. Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, time now for our roundup rep, and we'll delve deeper into some of the stories that you need to get in the know about, and what's happened in the news as far back as even the past weekend, and what we can expect to develop in this new week. And in this segment, we're joined by our resident analyst, Mighty Jamie, to talk to us about some of those stories. Mighty, a very good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning to you, good morning to the viewers and listeners. I'm good. I hope that you are too.
I am. Happy Monday. Let's start this week.
Yes. Yes,
and
it's a happy
to get
Monday.
things
Let's hope we
rolling
have a
for
good
our
one.
roundup rep, we go to Tunisia. The president there, President Kais Saied, has extended the country's state of emergency. This follows hundreds of people having taken to the streets in protests in Tunis against his increasingly authoritarian rule. He's extended this curfew until as far back as December. That's quite a long time. What does that signal?
Well, it signals to us, number one, that the regime is very worried by this moment and is doing their level best to try to frustrate the political aspirations of the protesters. And at this stage, it looks as if the political aspirations of those protesters are to get some real reforms and possibly to actually change the leadership in Tunisia. If you remember, the Arab Spring started in Tunisia. And as a result of that, there's probably an understanding from the office of the president right now that, listen, I am unpopular. I have basically sold out on the credentials upon which I got into power as well, because he came in there as a constitutional professor, somebody who was actually supposed to advance the state of affairs. But power corrupts, and when you have a strong relationship or when you build a relationship with the army, what that does is that sometimes you become an instrument for their, vision for how a country should be run. So as things stand right now, it looks as if there's a definite fear because the people are protesting quite consistently, and they are articulating that the different decisions which have been taken over the years by the leadership has been such that they have been worried. I mean, journalists have been arrested, activists have been arrested. We've seen a stifling of voices of dissent. We've seen a stifling of freedoms in a country which basically started the Arab Spring. And now they're trying to reclaim the democratic square. They're trying to reclaim the national direction. So this duration shows that there's an appreciation that something draconian has to be done in order to quell this particular moment. But because it's so long, it may actually be successful. You know, it's very difficult for people to be able to sustain protests, to be able to sustain this kind of, robust engagement with the regime for up to a year. You know, December is still very far away off, and that may really be the ultimate consequence of this, is that the regime may be able to outrun basically and outlast the protesters, but they may change strategy and protest periodically, and that in and of itself could be something that gives them longevity. But it's not a positive move. It's not a move that is anywhere close to democratic. It does show that there's a fear and frustration, and we'll have to see if the international community right now, which is very distracted, if I might say, will be able to add some pressure to what the activists on the inside have already created as internal pressure. Time will tell, but it definitely is a move from Kais Saied, which does show concern and does show that he is willing to do whatever it takes to stay in power.
In terms of the empowerment this gives then to the authorities in Tunisia, what is it, and how will this help, actually, this extension of the state of emergency, even for the president?
Well, state of emergencies really give people in the administration serious powers of repression. They can abduct civilians, they can keep you locked up for periods of time. Anybody who is violating curfews, anybody who is, I mean, if you think about home arrests and if you think about what we've seen in different states of emergencies, if the police can just come and take you in your home, and take you to prison and for protected periods of time, that creates a culture of fear, that creates a culture where nobody feels safe. And that is when you actually have a silencing of the discourse, a silencing of the views of the people. This really is one of the harshest ways that you can crack down, going for a state of emergency, giving your military and your police all of these powers where they can basically go into people's homes, where people can be in prolonged periods of incarceration. It's truly sad what is happening right now in Tunisia, to be quite honest, because this is where the Arab Spring started, and to see these types of actions being taken in Tunisia, it's shameful. I would say the African Union needs to say something, but right now I'm not really crossing my fingers about their activities or their conduct. They are really not in a position in this dispensation to be able to help the average African protect their rights and freedoms, and to be able to call out this type of behavior, because all of this falls afoul of so many of the African Union charters. Here we are looking at the Charter on Human Rights. This is a clear violation of the African Charter on Human Rights, but it's clearly being done without any real vocalization or pressure from the African Union.
Right, let's move to Guinea-Bissau now. The opposition leader there, Domingos Simoes Pereira, has been released from jail. This is after he was there for several months in detention. He was among senior politicians held by the military following that coup of November there that ousted President Umaro Sikoso Embalio just days after presidential elections. What could this release change in terms of the balance of power in Guinea-Bissau's politics?
Well, it's still early days to be able to ascertain what the release will entail. But I think what's important to understand is that the first thing that you mentioned is that Mbalo did not win the last election, and he was trying to stay in power in a way that many people on the ground felt was illegitimate. And as such, the military performed the coup in the way that they did. But in so doing, what they then did is create a crisis of legitimacy for themselves, because whenever a military takes over power, whenever a military comes in, they have no legitimacy. And ironically, we were talking about how the African Union does not take action for repression of citizens. The leaders of the African Union hate the idea of coups, and they generally stand up against coup leaders, and they generally try to impose the harshest sanctions and frustrate the economy whenever there is any group that has done a coup. So in order to gain legitimacy, it would have been important for the junta to release the opposition leader who was unable to participate in the last elections. So they said, obviously, that, and all of the coup leaders say something similar, that no, we just did this coup so that we can remove the bad administration and allow for, elections. So in releasing him, they are giving some credibility to their version and some credibility to their motives and intentions. And it may very well be that the international community will look favorably at this action, because, as I said at the onset, the administration really was not viewed as being legitimate, the prior administration, which has removed the Umalo Mbalo administration. So as things stand right now, this is a positive move. It's something that will be welcomed, but it's something that I think we'll have to wait and see to really assess whether or not the coming period will be one of democratic transition, or whether or not the junta is using this only as a means of gaining short-term to medium-term credibility as they themselves try to position themselves to then be able to contest for elections. We just spoke recently about another election when an African leader was a leader of the junta, then converted his own leadership into a political party, and then came and ran the country legitimately. And so these are things that could happen. And because it's so early, I wouldn't ascribe too much to it right now, but to say that it is a welcome move and it is consistent with what they said.
Some disturbing accounts from witnesses in Sudan. Witnesses are saying there that paramilitary fighters in Darfur, in that region, kidnapped children during attacks and sometimes killing the parents of those children first. Some victims were reportedly told that they would be used as slaves or to herd animals. What does this report, the reported abductions, reveal then in terms of the conduct of the RSF and the wider humanitarian crisis happening in Darfur?
It's very worrying. And the reports about the conduct of the RSF have been ongoing for months. We've seen reports of killings. We've seen reports of, all kinds of abuse, including abuse of women and children. So these new reports are consistent with the reports that we have been seeing and hearing over the last few months. And we must be aware that the damage to Sudan as a result of this war has been quite significant. The internally displaced people are in the millions. The number of people who have died from this conflict are in the tens of thousands, and perhaps we've even crossed the 100,000 line right now. It's very difficult to get a full count because it's not a conflict which has been covered in the same way that the Ukrainian conflict has been covered or the conflict in Gaza has been covered. But this is the largest conflict on the African soil and has caused significant damage on the people of Sudan. All of this while the gold that is coming out of Sudan continues to be exported and continues to be traded on international markets. So we have blood gold right now trading in the markets. The Rapid Support Forces are led by Hemeti and Dagalo, and he is one of the people who was implicated in the genocide which occurred in Darfur in 2003. And it may very well be that we are at the point now where we have another genocide which has occurred in Sudan. And the Darfur region, again, is one where we need to pay particular attention because of the atrocities that were committed there before. The other real concern that is quite worrying is that the victims in Darfur are predominantly dark-skinned Africans. And there is that element there of colorism, the element of racism, if you will, in the way that this genocide has been committed. It's very well likely that right now we are witnessing a crime against humanity that the global community is not speaking about sufficiently. One of my biggest concerns last year is that, Sudan and the DRC were attached to other slogans without getting full and independent attention, because people will say free Gaza, free Congo, free Sudan, but then just only thereafter speak about the issues of the Middle East and not really speak about why are they saying free Congo or why are they saying free Sudan. And it has now fallen off, the international attention, not to say that it had as much as it should have. On the African continent, we must discuss entities who are supporting the Rapid Support Forces because they're not operating in isolation. They've received a lot of support from the United Arab Emirates, and we need to be able to start asking ourselves questions about the role of the United Arab Emirates in a lot of conflicts in North Africa, and also the role of the United Arab Emirates in Africa overall. Should we not, as Africans, start also asking tough questions about these countries, their motives and their impacts, considering that the Rapid Support Forces have caused such significant damage in Sudan? But at the end of the day, the bigger story with Sudan is that you have two military leaders here who the people do not want. These two entities who are currently fighting are not the aspiration of the people of Sudan. This is not why they protested in 2019. This is not why they put their lives on the line. They wanted a civilian government. They wanted a constitutional government. They did not want a religious state. They did not want another dictatorship. They wanted a constitutional democracy. And they are so far from having that now, because what we are still seeing and what we are in the middle of is two military leaders with egos trying to become the next dictator of Sudan. And that, I think, is part of the crisis, that all of the work that was done by the civilians, by the people, has now been put to the wayside because of these two competing military entities. Asanda.
All right, let's leave it there for today, Mighty. Always great having these catch-up sessions with you. And we'll catch up with you next week, Monday. I hope you have a great week ahead.
Thank you, and you too.
Thank you. Our resident analyst joining us there, Mighty Jamie, to take a look at some of the stories making headlines in and around our continent. And we call this segment the Roundup Wrap. It comes on Mondays. It's 6:30 Central African time. Let's get our news headlines from Chanduko Legege.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective. SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Former South African President Jacob Zuma's name appears in the newly released documents by the U.S. Justice Department in its latest tranche of the Epstein files. A new witness takes the stand this morning at the Madlanga Commission investigating allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in South Africa's criminal justice system. And the Democratic Republic of Congo has blamed the M23 rebel groups for the deaths of more than 200 people in the mine collapse last Wednesday. I'll be back with a full bulletin at 7 o'clock Central African time.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
And now let's catch you up with the world of sports. We get our first full bulletin for this Monday morning from Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
We kick off with it's basketball and netball rather, where the South African national netball team has recorded an historic two-time and a 2-1 Test series victory over England. The Spar Proteas beat the Roses 65-50 in the third and the final Test match at the Ellis Park Indoor Arena in Johannesburg on Sunday. The home side defended like Trojans and applied pressure on the visitors' goal shooters in the first quarter. The Roses could only convert 60% of their opportunities to South Africa's 94%. The Proteas had a 7-goal lead after the first quarter, more than doubled that margin by halftime, and then held on for victory. England are ranked 4th in the world, 1 place higher than South Africa, and are the 2018 Commonwealth Games champions. These two teams will be in the same group when the 2026 Games takes place in Glasgow in July and August. On to football news, South Africa's Minister of Sports, Gayton McKenzie, says calls to boycott the FIFA Soccer World Cup in the USA later this year are not logical. McKenzie addressed the media at the V&A waterfront in Cape Town, where the FIFA trophy is on display. It's the trophy's third public display in the country after making its first appearance at the Union Buildings on Friday, where it was unveiled by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The soccer trophy is making the rounds in countries that have qualified for the Soccer Spectacular. Canada and Mexico are co-hosting with the USA. And calls have been mounting for soccer fans to boycott the event due to President Donald Trump's aggressive approach towards immigrants, including from the former FIFA president Sepp Blatter.
That's mad cow disease. That's my view. Mad cow disease. Do they understand the repercussions of boycotting a FIFA game? That means our players will be sanctioned. We will be banned. We might not see football in our generation. That's madness.
And McKenzie is confident that Bafana Bafana will bring the trophy back home.
When it comes to sport, I never use my head, I use my heart. And I'm telling you today, Bafana Bafana is going all the way. We're taking this World Cup.
And tennis news, Carlos Alcaraz became the youngest player to achieve the career Grand Slam when he defeated Novak Djokovic in the 2026 Australian Open final. Either way, it was going to be a historic day in Melbourne. Djokovic was chasing a scarcely believable and record-setting 25th Grand Slam. But this day saw 22-year-old Alcaraz etch his name into the history books via a 2-6, 6-2, 6-3, 7-5 scoreline at the Rod Laver Arena. For most of Djokovic's 10 Australian Open titles, the Serb couldn't buy a share in support from the Melbourne crowd. The French Open is the next Grand Slam event, and it's a tournament he's dominated in the past 2 years. He will enter the 2026 edition of Roland Garros as its two-time defending champion. However, 2026 saw them embrace the underdog, a tag that has been forced on Djokovic by the likes of Jannik Sinner and Alcaraz with their incredible play. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Nwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Still to come on Rise and Shine, the Media Institute of Southern Africa in Botswana it lends its voice to the treatment of journalists in recent months. Reports that some journalists have been subjected to sustained public attacks and accusations of misinformation, amongst other things. So they've condemned these reports. We'll find out about that later.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android.
And now let's catch you up with what's happening in the world of business. We get our first update for this morning, and we say good morning to Tabiso Lehuko for that.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. Mozambique's President Daniel Chapo has opened a 200,000 metric ton per year graphite processing plant at a Chinese-owned mine. This as the Southeast African country boosts output of the battery mineral. Mozambique is one of the world's top producers of graphite, which is an excellent conductor of heat and electricity, which is used in batteries for electric vehicles and mobile phones. The Gauteng Provincial Finance and Economic Development Member of the Executive Council, Leboga Maile, has urged communities in South Africa, businesses and government departments to pay for municipal services. He says that the non-payment is crippling municipalities' finances and affecting their ability to deliver basic services such as water and sanitation across the province. Maile has called for urgent compliance to help to stabilize municipal budgets and keep essential services running. He addressed the media in Johannesburg.
We also want to urge municipalities to work on the credibility of their billing systems, because if they don't work on the credibility of their billing systems, some of these problems will persist.
The Premier of South Africa's Western Cape Province, Alan Winde, has met with his Energy and Water Council to discuss the management of water shortages in some areas. His administration has approached the national government for a disaster declaration amid water challenges and crippling wildfires in the Boerland and Garden Route. Winde says below average requires a holistic approach to secure water resources.
There's around 844 million rand being spent over the next 2 years in our municipalities. That excludes the City of Cape Town. The City of Cape Town have got a number of big projects that run into the many billions of rand, desalination and water reuse, and some of the biggest projects on the African continent. And then, of course, it's also the Western Cape, ourselves investing more than 2 billion rand into bulk water over the medium term. That is aligned to our water resilience plan and our 15-year plan that has been on the go already.
Ghana has reduced its gold reserves about 51%, redirecting part of its holdings into foreign currency investments. The governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Asiyama, says that the sharp decline reflects a deliberate portfolio rebalancing rather than loss. However, development economist and a senior research fellow at the Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy, Dr. Frank Banor, has raised concerns calling for a clear explanation over the sudden and significant drop in the country's gold holdings. Repair work is continuing in Ukraine to restore heating to people affected by a major power cut. Hundreds of buildings in the capital Kyiv are still without heat as overnight temperatures fell below 20 degrees Celsius. The BBC's Abdu Jalil Abdullah Soluv has the details.
And in some parts of Ukraine, it will be minus 30. And that's why a lot of people are worried that if Russia resumes its strikes and targets energy facilities in Ukraine, then it may be a catastrophe for them.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 386. In Botswana, it's at 12 bula 996. Kenya, 128 shilling 453. And Zambia, 19 kwacha 70. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5 ruble 25. Russia, 75 rubles 956. India, 91 rupees 61. China, 61.95. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 16 rand 7 cents. 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold, $5,183 and platinum, $2,494 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $69.96 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has renewed calls for accelerated infrastructure investment across the continent, saying it is key to economic growth, inclusive development, and Africa's long-term resilience. Speaking during a virtual meeting of heads of state and government of the Presidential Infrastructure Champion Initiative, Ramaphosa highlighted infrastructure as a critical enabler of continental integration under the African Continental Free Trade Area, noting that Africa could double its GDP by 2040 if infrastructure spending is scaled up. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
The Presidential Infrastructure Champion Initiative was born out of a proposal by former South African President Jacob Zuma to accelerate regional infrastructure development enabled through the political championing of projects. This proposal was made during the 23rd Heads of State and Government Orientation Committee meeting in Kampala, Uganda in July 2010. The role of the champions is to bring visibility and block bottlenecks, coordinate resource mobilization, and ensure project implementation. It presents the opportunity for African heads of state and government to be actively involved in the development and implementation of projects. The projects cover 4 infrastructure sectors, namely transport, energy, ICT, and transboundary water. Current PCI Chair Cyril Ramaphosa said infrastructure development is a vehicle towards economic growth.
As we all know, infrastructure is a catalyst for economic growth, and in many ways it drives inclusive development. It enables access by our people to markets, to improving our essential services, and to engendering economic opportunities. By prioritizing infrastructure development, we are laying the groundwork for long-term economic resilience and progress. But we are also doing something most wonderful, which is continental integration through the African Continental Free Trade Area. A report last year from the OECD and the African Union Commission said that Africa could double its GDP by 2040, but only if countries are able to scale up their infrastructure investment.
Ramaphosa says Africa needs between 130 and 170 billion US dollars annually to close its infrastructure funding gap, urging governments to lead investment efforts alongside development partners, while noting that despite fiscal and geopolitical challenges, key infrastructure projects across the continent continue to show strong resilience and progress.
It is estimated that between $130 billion and $170 billion is actually required on an annual basis to close the infrastructure funding gap on our continent. The report further notes that governments account for 41% of our continent's infrastructure spend. This makes governments key in escalating investment alongside bilateral and multilateral development partners who should be working with us. It is pleasing that despite fiscal constraints and challenges that many countries face, as well as the geopolitical shifts that we see unfolding in the world, our projects have seen remarkable resilience. They've seen unbelievable progress.
He highlighted some of the infrastructure projects that are advancing, with the Trans-Sahara Highway nearly complete, cross-border fiber links operational, and renewed momentum and investment interest in major transport and energy corridors.
The Trans-Sahara Highway, for example, is now more than 90% complete. This brings us closer to the vision of a fully integrated 10,000-kilometer African Unity Road. The Algerian segment of the fiber optic link between Nigeria and Algeria is now operational. We welcome the ongoing work to eliminate roaming charges in the East African community through the Smart Africa Initiative under Rwanda's leadership. This is a model we hope to replicate across the continent. We note also the renewed political momentum for the Trans-Sahara gas pipeline and the Abidjan-Lagos corridor, mobilizing more than $15 billion in investment interest.
He called for stronger protection of major infrastructure projects from political instability, highlighting South Africa's growing local locomotive production, urging countries to embed such projects in national law to ensure long-term continuity.
South African factories are now producing locomotives with over 70% local content, proving that Africa can build locomotives for Africa. We will shortly be going into greater detail on these and other projects under the PC portfolio. We must remain vigilant. Political instability in some regions has stalled and in some cases even stopped critical projects. We must use our collective influence to shield these projects from political cycles and ensure that they are incorporated into national legislation for the sake of continuity. These projects need to be properly protected and insulated for posterity.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Leader of South Africa's economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema, says he will appeal his conviction in the city of East London in the country, and he's noting that the appeal will automatically suspend his jail sentence. That's a story we'll be looking at coming up after this.
Channel Africa 1060. 6 decades of stories, voices, and vision.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Tumeona chapisho mapema hii leo ya kwamba Wizara ya Mambo ya Nje ya nchini Marekani imesema inapitia upya uhusiano wake na nchi ya Tanzania. Pengine taarifa hii imepokelewaje na wananchi wa Tanzania?
Cha kwanza tumeiona taarifa ambayo imetoka hii leo. Sisi kwetu taarifa hii haikutushangaza wala haikutushtua kwa sababu tulishaona taarifa kama hiyo imetoka kwenye ubalozi wa Marekani nchini Tanzania, ikiwa imetolewa na bwana Tom Pigott.
Umezungumza kwa kina kabisa. Haya ni malalamiko ambayo yamekuwa yakijitokeza mara kwa mara. Unadhani sasa je, wana hoja ya msingi?
Unauliza maswali mazuri sana na maswali ya tafakari. Maswali ambayo hayawezi kujibiwa kwa dakika moja au kwa siku moja. Ni maswali yanayohitaji utafiti, yanayohitaji kusoma.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The leader of South Africa's economic freedom fighters, or EFF, Julius Malema, says he will appeal his conviction in the city of East London in the country, noting that the appeal will automatically suspend his jail sentence. Malema made the announcement during his closing address at the party's second plenum, following their third National People's Assembly. EFF leaders, including provincial and youth representatives, met in Boksburg near Johannesburg over the weekend to review progress on past resolutions and plan the party's next steps. Zara Groenewald reports.
In October last year, Malema was found guilty in the East London Magistrates Court on multiple firearms-related charges. These include unlawfully possessing and discharging a firearm in public at the party's 2018 rally. However, closing the party's second plenum today in Boksburg, Malema told officials that his appeal would allow him to continue his duties in Parliament.
So your immediate fears must be cleared that once I appeal, it suspends the jail sentence that they've imposed on me. Now, if they impose a sentence that is more than 12 months without an option of a fine, I will not qualify to be a member of Parliament. But once I appeal that, it suspends that thing. I continue with my duties as a member of Parliament, as a member of ethics, as a member of the JSC, because that's where they want to remove me.
Malema added that even if he is to be removed from Parliament, he will continue to lead the party, assuring that his leadership of the EFF is not under threat.
But even if they succeed in removing me from Parliament, I've got a home here called Winnie Madikizela Mandela House. That's where the People's Parliament is. And that's where I will go and serve in the People's Parliament in Winnie Madikizela Mandela House. Because I was never born to be a member of Parliament. I joined the struggle to liberate the people of South Africa, not to be a member of Parliament. They can take their Parliament. I'll remain in the struggle.
Beyond his legal battle, Malema says the EFF has used this weekend's plenum to map out its strategy for the year ahead, with a strong focus on the upcoming local government elections. He says the party will roll out a nationwide campaign and has urged all South Africans to register to vote.
Because it's your civil duty as a citizen to vote and to vote for a party of your choice. So we cannot just be citizens and we don't play our role as citizens. And that role is to be a registered voter. So it's important that in as much as we demand service from government, we too as citizens must play our role.
I am Zara Groenewald in Boksburg.
Media Institute of Southern Africa, MISA, in Botswana, has condemned the emerging threats by the powers that be in the Southern African country aimed at undermining media freedom. In recent months, journalists have been subjected to sustained public attacks, including accusations of misinformation, unethical conduct, and poor professionalism. Shingarai Matondo reports from Gaborone.
The reason I keep suggesting to them they should stop what they are doing, this fake news, these falsehoods that tarnish people's reputations, impair their dignity and their fame, those things are criminal. You can actually be taken to court and imprisoned for writing falsehoods about a person and tarnishing their reputation and their fame and their dignity. I'm admonishing them because very soon they will end up in prison. So our journalists are committing crimes by the day.
This is President Duma Boko speaking about how journalists in Botswana could be prosecuted and probably incarcerated for what he calls publishing falsehoods about government and individuals. In response to these accusations and threats from the Southern African country, Media Institute of Southern Africa, MISA Botswana chairperson Thomas Nkoma said intimidation of this nature is unwelcome in a democracy like Botswana.
Such conduct is unacceptable in a constitutional democracy. Of serious concern are reports that Radio Botswana broadcaster Litumeletse Mutsusa was removed from the Masasele morning program following a tightly controlled broadcast centered on the Constitutional Court. If confirmed, this constitutes a direct assault on editorial independence and represents political interference within the public broadcasting.
Nkoma, who doubles as a member of the MISA Regional Governing Council, said the Botswana chapter rejects any attempt to conflate criticism with disloyalty or journalism with hostility. He said scrutiny of power is not subversion, and it is the very purpose of the media in a democratic society. According to Nkoma, the persistent framing of the media as antagonistic enemies rather than constitutional partners erode public trust, chills investigative reporting, and discourages honest public debate. Mr. Botswana therefore called Boko and his administration to create a conducive environment for journalists to practice their profession without fear or favor.
Therefore, Mr. Botswana calls on government to immediately reaffirm its commitment to press freedom and editorial independence, protect journalists, particularly those within state media, from political interference and intimidation, ensure transparency regarding personnel decisions linked to editorial content, and accelerate meaningful legal and policy reforms to safeguard media freedom and sustainability.
Last year, delegates at the Southern Africa Media Summit 2025 found safety of journalists and the survival of independent media are at critical juncture in Southern Africa, issuing a united call for immediate action to combat unlawful surveillance, online attacks, and rising authoritarian practices. Reporting for Channel Africa from Gaborone here in Botswana, this is Ashingra Madondo.
Nigeria's trade and investment relationship with Turkey is set for a major boost following President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's recent state visit to Ankara. According to Dele Oye, chairman of the Nigeria-Turkey Business Council, more than 9 bilateral agreements were signed across key sectors, including higher education, defense, trade, diaspora cooperation, and halal products, a development expected to significantly deepen economic ties between the two countries. Here's Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa with more.
Dele Oye, chairman of the Nigeria-Turkey Business Council, says Nigeria-Turkey trade is expected to top $10 billion after new agreements. But how realistic is the trade target, and which sectors are likely to drive the faster gains for Nigeria? Collins Nekwe is a senior international trade consultant.
It's pretty ambitious, but reflects strong political will and emerging commercial opportunities. Right now, annual bilateral trade is roughly $2 billion. So, to hit 10 billion would require doubling or more within a very, very short period, something that hinges on investments and implementation of the recent agreements signed between President Tinubu and President Erdogan. Realistically, an interim target of 5 billion seems more immediately achievable given current growth patterns and the launch of a joint economy and trade committee aimed at reducing investment risk and improving market access.
He says deeper Nigeria-Turkey trade is a step in the right direction, especially considering Nigeria's position under AFTA and its competitiveness.
As Nigeria grows its export base, especially in processed food, agriculture, and manufactured products, it strengthens its export competitiveness across African markets under ACTA's preferential terms. Turkey's use of Nigeria as a gateway to the broader African market is explicitly part of the strategy. And this positions Nigeria as a central hub rather than merely an endpoint market. Moreover, Turkey's commercial engagement differs from that of China, the China-linked trade in a couple of ways. One, market diversification.
Political analyst Tukmen Terzi shares some of the risks and structural bottlenecks that could slow down Nigeria-Turkey trade despite these new agreements.
The current bilateral trade with Nigeria and Turkey around 2 billion, and with the President Tinubu's recent visit, they signed agreement in 9 different fields. So it is the bilateral trade going to be expected to be around $10 billion in the coming years. And Turkey is exporting to Nigeria machinery, equipment, and textile, manufacturing goods, and many others, defense. And Turkey is another issue. Turkey imports crude oil and petroleum products and agricultural products from Nigeria. This is also very important because Turkey has no energy, oil resources, and depend on the import.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
My name is Asanda Beda. Good morning. If you've just joined us, we enter now the second hour of that breakfast show. It's called Rise and Shine. Let's get our news update first. At 7 o'clock Central African time, here's Chandugo Ligege.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Former South African President Jacob Zuma's name appears in newly released documents by the U.S. Justice Department, DOJ, in its latest tranche of the Epstein files. The DOJ has published over 3 million additional pages in response to the Epstein Files Transparency Act signed into law by President Donald Trump last November. A series of emails makes reference to a dinner arranged at London's Ritz Hotel on the 5th of March 2010 while Zuma was on a state visit to the UK. Sean Bryce Peace reports.
An email from a Mark Lloyd on March 4th, 2010 invites someone named Vera to a small for then-President Zuma, who is encouraged to attend to add some real glamour to the occasion. Another email then shows a response from someone who says she's honored to accept the invitation and describes herself as a Russian model who's lived in London for 2 years. An email purportedly from Epstein to British diplomat Peter Mandelson on March 5th, 2010 reads that Mark Lloyd was hosting Zuma the following day at the Ritz and that he had invited someone whose name was redacted but described as beautiful to attend. A March 6th email to Epstein the day after the reference dinner from Mark Lloyd describes Zuma as being a more impressive character than was expected.
A new witness takes to the stand this morning at the Madlanga Commission investigating allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in South Africa's criminal justice system. This as the Commission enters day 51 of proceedings at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College in Pretoria. SABC's Sibahle Mota reports.
The Madlanga Commission has since delivered its first interim report to President Ramaphosa, who has instructed Acting Police Minister Firoz Katalia and National Police Commissioner General Fani Masimula to establish an investigating task team. The task team will probe all the individuals who have been implicated in corruption. They include General Liseja Sinona and Commissioner Julius Mkhwanazi, to name a few. While Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has testified before the Commission, the inquiry has not made a firm finding against him. I am Sibahle Mota in Pretoria.
In Central Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo has blamed the M23 rebel group for the deaths of more than 200 people in a mine collapse last Wednesday. The government said it had prohibited operations at the Rubia mine, which is in territory controlled by the rebels. The BBC's Paul Njie reports.
In a strongly worded statement, the Congolese government said mining in Rubaya had continued without respect for safety standards despite a ban on such activities. The M23 rebels seized Rubaya in the east of the DRC in 2024. The site holds 15% of the world's coltan, a mineral used to make mobile phones and computers. The government in Kinshasa insists the rebels, backed by Rwanda, are fueling a war economy marked by systemic looting of Congolese natural resources. The M23 and Rwanda have previously denied such allegations.
Britain's foreign minister is set to visit Ethiopia today, where she seeks to focus on measures to stem rising numbers of migrants from the Horn of Africa seeking to reach the UK. Yvette Cooper says job creation partnerships would dissuade people from leaving Ethiopia, while stronger law enforcement cooperation was essential to counter smuggler gangs and speed up returns of migrants with no right to stay in Britain. Israel says Palestinians should be able to leave and enter Gaza from today through the newly reopened Rafah crossing with Egypt. The Israeli authorities will allow the limited movement of Gaza residents but no aid convoys. Sam Rose, the director of affairs at the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugee, explains what's likely to happen at the crossing in the coming days.
It's not clear quite how this will work in the days to come. What we know for sure is that any movement of Palestinians into and out of Gaza will remain extremely limited for the foreseeable future. Despite that, this is a positive development. The Rafah crossing is the single lifeline that Palestinians have to the outside world. There are tens of thousands of desperately ill Palestinians that need to get out urgently for medical care. We hope that that will now start to happen in larger numbers than we've seen over the last 2 years.
That's all for now. For any stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Chanduko Ligege.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Sports headline: South Africa clarifies the hosting rights of the 2026 Women's AFCON. And Freddie Scott wins his first European Tour title at the Bahrain Championship. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
Right, we enter the second hour of Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa, coming to you live from our South African studios in Johannesburg. My name is Asanda Beda. If you've just joined us, thank you for doing that, and good morning to you. A lot of stories coming up in this hour, as well as we bring you news and current affairs from the African perspective. One of those stories is the Democratic Republic of Congo. The president there, Felix Tshisekedi, has called for an inclusive national dialogue. We know that in that part of the world or our continent, fighting persists between government forces and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels. So that's an intervention, the latest one there, in terms of trying to sort that out. The president does, however, set conditions for this national dialogue, one of them being that his legitimacy or past court decisions should not be questioned. He also wants that dialogue to happen on Congolese soil. Another story will be going to Gaza, where the Rafah border crossing with Egypt is set to reopen today for the first time in nearly 2 years. We'll find out what that means then in terms of the medical care from the outside world that the people of Gaza could be having an opportunity to access now. Those stories and more, of course, are coming up. And connect with us on channelafrica.co.za. You can also find us on the SABC Plus app via mobile phone, and at Channel Africa 1. That's where we are on social media platforms. We are live streaming on YouTube there as well.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African Perspective. The voice of the continent, now online, with all your sports fixtures, lifestyle, and more.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Bring you the energy, news, and good vibes to kickstart your day. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
At least 200 people have died in a landslide triggered by heavy rainfall in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The disaster happened at a mining site controlled by the M23 rebels in North Kivu province. SABC correspondent Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
A heavy downpour lashed the Rubaya mining site in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, causing the mines to collapse. Several artisanal miners were buried under the mud and rubble. The M23 rebels controlling the site say they've recovered 200 bodies. fears are rising that the death toll may increase as rescue efforts continue. Several injured miners have been taken to local health centers for treatment. The Rubaya mine has huge deposits of coltan, which is used to make components for smartphones and computers. Heavy rains have caused numerous floods and landslides in the DRC over the past 3 years. In 2023, more than 400 people were killed by floods in the eastern province of South Kivu. The rebel-appointed governor of North Kivu province has ordered a suspension of artisanal mining operations at the Rubaya mining site. Chris Ochamringa, SABC News, Kinshasa.
Staying with the Democratic Republic of Congo now, the country continues to face unrest in the east, where fighting persists between government forces and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels. President Felix Tshisekedi has called for an inclusive national dialogue, setting conditions that it would not question his legitimacy or past court decisions, while emphasizing national unity. To help us understand these developments and what they mean for peace and governance in the DRC, we're joined by Jean-Baptiste Gassominari, an independent political analyst specializing in the Great Lakes region. Jean, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. It's great to catch up with you again, and happy Monday.
Thank you. Happy Monday to you.
Right, so in the Democratic Republic of Congo, if we start here first, actually, let's give our listeners a sense of the current situation in eastern DRC and why the fighting with M23 rebels has persisted for this long time.
Well, I think it has been persistent for this long time because the causes haven't been tackled. And the parties have never agreed on anything. They signed a ceasefire in Doha, Qatar, during negotiations, but this ceasefire has never been implemented. So I think the fighting has been ongoing because a solution hasn't been found to the cause that led to the fighting itself.
So President Tshisekedi has outlined specific conditions for this national dialogue that he calls for. One of those that it must be on Congolese soil, that also it must be under institutional control. But he says this legitimacy should not be questioned or past court decisions. In your view, do these conditions make the dialogue meaningful and inclusive?
No, definitely not. Definitely not, because the dialogue he's proposing is his dialogue, which most of the politicians in DRC are actually calling monologue, because it's like a kind of dialogue dictated by him, and because he is not the one that initiated the dialogue, then he should not also set conditions for this dialogue to take place. Who is to participate, what is to be discussed, because he is part of the problem. I believe he cannot be the solution bearer. So on my behalf, my views are that it is a mistake on his behalf. It's a way actually of blocking this dialogue not to happen, because for a long time they have been asking him to accept that this dialogue take place, so that they discuss on issues that are of interest to the nation, to the entire nation, irrespective of who is in power and how he is conducting political business in DRC. So setting conditions and saying that his legitimacy should not be questioned. So I believe that won't be a dialogue. A dialogue is a forum where everyone says what he thinks and proposes solution on how to solve the ongoing crisis, being political, military, or social crisis in the country. So I believe that accepting dialogue is one thing, but setting conditions is not proper, because this can hinder the dialogue and its objectives that politicians, international community have been have been asking for, because it is needed. The country is sick today. It has so many problems, as I have mentioned earlier, political problems, social problems, security problems. There is a war ongoing in the eastern part. Those people participating in that war and who now control a big chunk of the land in the eastern cannot participate on that dialogue if it is organized in Kinshasa, because they are not welcome there. So I believe if a dialogue is to happen, then it should not be conditional.
Parts of the opposition continue to contest his election, President Tshisekedi, and they criticize his governance. Can meaningful national dialogue take place without addressing these political disputes?
In my views, no, because actually, if the opposition is questioning the elections, then it touches automatically to his legitimacy. That is why actually he says that he can accept a dialogue, but without any facilitator from outside, and that this dialogue should not touch on his legitimacy, and it should be organized by the institutions. And, if the institutions are the problem, if his legitimacy is the problem, then a dialogue that will not won't be a meaningful dialogue.
Parts of the regional leaders as well, leaders such as Angola's President João Lourenço, have been promoting dialogue. How significant is the role of diplomacy or regional diplomacy in stabilizing the Democratic Republic of Congo?
I think, all crises are resolved through dialogue and diplomacy. So it has happened in the past, and it is still of an importance today. So definitely there is no other way to resolve the ongoing crisis in DRC if not through dialogue. So diplomacy is very important because the leaders, including the president of Angola and other regional leaders, have been pushing for this dialogue to happen so that they can tackle all these issues so that they find a solution and stabilize the country, because this is what is needed. So the implications of leaders at regional level and international level will be paramount for this dialogue to happen and for this dialogue to be meaningful, so that Congo can regain its stability.
And then recently, former President Joseph Kabila was sentenced in absentia for his alleged support of M23 rebels. Could that then risk deepening political divisions?
Yeah, definitely, yes. And there have been ongoing speculations that a revision of that judgment is also possible, and it seems that there are underground consultations that have started to that effect, because Kabila is somebody who ruled DRC for about 18 years, so he's somebody who has support from so many people and so many groups of people in DRC. So his sentence to death was also an event that made so many people unhappy. So if a dialogue is to happen, I think issues like that one of national interest should also be addressed, and if possible, this sentence be annulled so that they may go to dialogue without fear, because when a death penalty is hanging on your head, and when a judgment is executable, anytime if you are arrested, you can be executed. So I believe that these are the issues that will be tackled before even the dialogue takes place.
What do you think it would mean for strengthening accountability if the sentence could be annulled?
Well, the prosecution itself was political. So if the annulment of the judgment is also decided politically, I think there won't be any problem because, there was no fair trial accorded to former President Mr. Kabila Joseph. So if the same regime decide to annul the judgment for alleged mistake of technicalities during his trial, I believe this is something that everyone would understand because among the things that are to be discussed is also the way the Tshisekedi regime is handling the judiciary in DRC. So they just they prosecute who they want and they give him sentences that are political. So if they can use the same means to annul those judgments, then for me, I do not see any problem because the credibility of the judiciary is at stake.
Finally, President Tshisekedi has said that 2026 will be the year of it will be a decisive year for governance and national unity. What will be key in terms of the steps he puts in place to get there?
Well, we are used to his speeches. He promises a lot of things, but never materialize. So I think this is another new promise which will never materialize because for that national unity to take place, there are tangible things that need to be done, and nobody is seeing any sign of goodwill from his side. So I think it's also another mere promise that will never be implemented.
Jean-Baptiste, thank you so much for your time again. We'll leave it there on that chat for now.
Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. That was Jean-Baptiste Gishominari, an independent political analyst specializing in the Great Lakes region, giving us his analysis of the announcement by the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, President Felix Tshisekedi, who's calling for a national dialogue, of course, with conditions.
60 years of stories, sounds, and spirits. Channel Africa, the African perspective. The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
U.S. President Donald Trump is set to announce his nominee to replace Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, with former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh emerging as the leading contender. Markets have rallied and prediction markets heavily favor Warsh, who is widely expected to be named when Trump makes the official announcement. Our business reporter Innocent Simusa spoke to Nolan Vapenar, head of fixed income at Anchor Capital, about the developments at the U.S. Federal Reserve.
Let's start with Jerome Powell. And President Trump has been very openly critical of the chair, specifically because he has felt that he wanted interest rate cuts to come through faster, and the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, was holding back on interest rate cuts. This has probably been going on for almost a year now, with various abusive tweets, etc. And it escalated to the point where there was a criminal investigation into Jerome Powell's conduct, specifically pertaining to a building that they built. But it was broadly seen as an unprecedented attack on the chairman of the Federal Reserve. And this has eroded a lot of confidence in the US and the US currency as a result of these actions. So, with that in context and knowing that President Trump really just wants lower interest rates, very much market participants, anchor included, have been expecting that he would appoint a new Fed chair who was going to give us rampant, for lack of a better word, interest rate cuts, pushing interest rates way back to the lows that we saw pre-COVID, just to continue to generate growth within the economy and, to be honest, to deal with the inflationary effect at a later stage. So at that stage, Rick Reeder was actually expected to be the trigger man for interest rate cuts, and the market didn't like this very much. So it was almost a surprise about a week and a half ago when President Trump pretty much said, no, it's not going to be Mr. Reeder. And instead, the market sort of turned attention towards Kevin Waller, who is now nominated as the next Federal Reserve Chairman. The market has taken this as a bit of a sigh of relief, to be honest, because we aren't getting someone who's going to be a bit of a maverick in that role. And instead, there's somebody who's possibly a bit more conservative, a bit more traditional in approach. And given things that have been happening in Washington, this is actually met quite positively by the markets. Now, unfortunately, if I'm sitting in South Africa, what is good for the US dollar and makes the dollar stronger kind of makes the rand a little bit weaker. So we're in this situation where the fact that actually you've got a more credible than expected Fed chairman coming in, it means South African rand's a little bit weaker today. It means South African financial assets are a little bit weaker because people are giving a sigh of relief and giving a bit of support to American assets.
There are reports that the former Federal Reserve Governor, Kevin Walsh, might take over as a new federal chair. What do you know about him?
To be honest, he is a name that has been around a bit. I think he is more traditional in approach. He is somebody who is concerned about inflation. He's given speeches where he's been openly against sort of uncontrolled interest rate cuts. He is somebody who is concerned about the size of the US balance sheet, about the amount of quantitative easing, and he wants to take a more conservative approach on that. So from all of these perspectives, I actually think he's quite a credible future chairman.
Trump has previously criticized high interest rates. Is there a risk that monetary policy could become more politically influenced under a new Fed chair?
I think to a degree it already has become more politically sort of controlled by Trump. I think the attacks on the Fed are unprecedented and have already caused concerns. In terms of the new Fed chair, I'm very sure that he is aware that President Trump is looking for further interest rate cuts. I think that will be part of the mandate and the pressure brought upon him. But that being said, I feel that Kevin Walsh is potentially a chairman who is able to resist some of that pressure, who's able to obviously take a view on interest rate cuts, but at the same time understands the consequences, the risks of going too far too fast. So he probably brings a bit more balance than some of the other Fed chairmen that have been possibilities that were bandied about.
How might the US dollar, in your view, respond to perceptions of a less independent Federal Reserve?
The US dollars is all about the amount of trust that you've got in the US financial system. And a less independent chair would clearly erode the trust. So that is part of why it's very important that they have a chairman who is perceived to be slightly more independent, albeit in a sort of difficult political environment.
That was business reporter Innocent Simusa, who spoke to Nolan Varpenaar, head of fixed income at Anchor Capital, a wealth and asset management company in South Africa. Get in touch with us via our social media platforms. At Channel Africa 1 is our handle. You can find us on Instagram, or as they say, the gram. Find us on Facebook. We are also on TikTok as well as LinkedIn. And then, of course, we are live streaming on YouTube. So lots of ways to get in touch with us through not just watch us as we live stream, as radio has become television, as our colleague Peter always says, but also to share your comments and questions that you might have on our programming as Channel Africa. The African Perspective, we come to you live from South Africa in Johannesburg. On the other side of economics, news and sports, we'll go to Nigeria, where we talk about the military there that says it has killed a senior Boko Haram commander along with 10 other militants in northeastern Borno State. That's still to come. We'll get more info on that later. 7:30 Central African time it is. Let's get our news headlines. Here is Chandugo Legege.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. The Nigerian army says it's killed a Boko Haram commander and 10 members of the militant group in northeastern Borno State as the country intensifies its efforts to counter rising insurgency. Former South African President Jacob Zuma's name appears in the newly released documents by the U.S. Justice Department in its latest tranche of the Epstein files. And South African singer Tyla has won her second Grammy, clinching the Best African Music Performance category. I'll be back with a full bulletin at 8 o'clock Central African Time.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's say good morning to Fikile Lingwati now, who has our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Asanda. First up, it's football news. South Africa's Ministry of Sport issued a statement clarifying that Morocco remains the official host of the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON, following confusion over remarks by Deputy Minister Bertha Peace-Mabe about the tournament. The statement signed by the South African Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie said Mabe's comments were misinterpreted. South Africa had only expressed its readiness to support the Confederation of African Football if alternative arrangements became necessary. The ministry emphasized that any future possibility of South Africa hosting the tournament would require official CAF confirmation and government. McKenzie concluded that Mabe's remarks do not in any way confirm South Africa as host, but they reflect the country's commitment to supporting African football and readiness to host major events. Some more football news. South Africa's Minister of Sports, Gayton McKenzie, says calls to boycott the FIFA Soccer World Cup in the USA later this year are not logical. McKenzie addressed the media at the V&A waterfront in Cape Town, where the FIFA trophy has been on display. It's the trophy's third public display in the country after making its first appearance at the Union Buildings on Friday, where it was unveiled by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The soccer trophy is making the rounds in countries that have qualified for the Soccer Spectacular. Canada and Mexico are co-hosting with the USA, and calls have been mounting for soccer fans to boycott the event due to President Donald Trump's aggressive approach towards immigrants, including from the former FIFA president Sepp Blatter.
That's mad cow disease. That's my view. Mad cow disease. Do they understand the repercussions of boycotting a FIFA game? That means our players will be sanctioned. We will be banned. We might not see football in our generation. That's madness.
And is confident that Bafana Bafana will bring the trophy back home.
I don't, when it comes to sport, I never use my head, I use my heart. And I'm telling you today, Bafana Bafana is going all the way. We're taking this World Cup.
On to netball news. South African national netball team has recorded a historic 2-1 test series victory over England. The Spar Proteas beat the Roses 65-50 in the third and the final test match at the Ellis Park Indoor Arena in Johannesburg on Sunday. The home side defended like Trojans and applied pressure on the visitors' goal shooters in the first quarter. The Roses could only convert 60% of their opportunities to South Africa's 94%. The Proteas had a 7-goal lead after the first quarter, more than doubled that margin by halftime, and then held on for victory. England are ranked 4th in the world, one place higher than South Africa and are the 2018 Commonwealth Games champions. These two teams will be in the same group when the 2026 Games takes place in Glasgow in July and August. Let's wrap up with golf news. German golfer Freddie Scott edged out Patrick Reed and Callum Hill in a three-way playoff to win his first European Tour title at the Bahrain Championship. Scott began the final round 2 shots behind overnight leader Hill, but pulled level after a 3 under 69 as they finished 17 under par for the tournament alongside former Masters champion Reed. Reed, who plans to return to the PGA Tour later this year after leaving the Live Golf circuit, won the Dubai Desert Classic last week and hauled himself into contention again with a closing 67 in Bahrain. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Nwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Still to come, we look at Nigeria's trade and investment relationship with Turkey, and this is set for a major boost. And they are going to be in bilateral agreements across some few sectors. These include higher education, defense, trade, diaspora cooperation, and halal products. Stay with us.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has now accused Rwanda of violating the peace deal. Are you surprised at this latest accusation? This is literally days after a signing, a ceremony, so to speak.
This is not surprising. I mean, if you ask Paul Kagame, he would also say almost the same thing. One should ask a question. The broker of the peace deal, President Trump, what is it that he wants? Why now? And why is this peace deal being signed in the Americas and not in the Great Lakes? Paul Kagame has never respected Tshisekedi, as often say. Tshisekedi must deal with the problems in his country. He has nothing to do with it. So this peace deal, obviously, when it was signed, one just looked at it and said, this will not last.
Kenny Matiba, former journalist.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Let's find out what's happening now in the world of business. We say good morning to Tabiso Lehogo.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Asanda, and good morning. The South African rand lost its footing after the greenback appreciated against a basket of currencies. The JSE was swayed by volatile precious metal prices, with the all-share index shedding more than 4% at Friday's closing bell. A more than 10% decline in the top 10 resources index and 11% decrease in the precious metals and mining index also weighed on the rand. It is currently trading at 16 Rand 23 to the US dollar. The Gauteng Provincial Finance and Economic Development Member of the Executive Council, Lebogang Maile, has urged communities in South Africa, businesses and government departments to pay for municipal services. He says non-payment is crippling municipalities' finances and affecting their ability to deliver basic services such as water and sanitation across the province. Maile has called for urgent compliance to help to stabilize municipal budgets and keep essential services running. He addressed the media in Johannesburg.
We also want to urge municipalities to work on the credibility of their billing systems, because if they don't work on the credibility of their billing systems, some of these problems will persist.
Mozambique's President Daniel Chapo has opened a 200,000 metric ton per year graphite processing plant. This as the country boosts the output of the battery mineral. Mozambique is one of the world's top producers of graphite, which is an excellent conductor of heat and electricity, and is used in batteries for electric vehicles and mobile phones. Ghana has reduced its gold reserves by 51%, redirecting part of its holdings into foreign currency investments. The governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Asiyama, says that the sharp decline reflects a deliberate portfolio rebalancing rather than a loss. However, development economist and senior research fellow at the Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy, Dr. Frank Bernard, has raised concerns calling for a clear explanation over the sudden and significant drop in the country's gold holdings. The French tech firm Capgemini says it's selling one of its subsidiaries in the United States after a row over its work for the Border and Immigration Agency ICE. French lawmakers, including Finance Minister Roland Lescure, has asked the company to shed light on the contract amid concern over the tactics used by ICE agents following the fatal shooting of 2 U.S. citizens in Minnesota last month. The BBC's Peter Hunt reports.
Capgemini operates in about 50 countries, but it's squirming under the spotlight over the activities of its US subsidiary, Capgemini Government Solutions. News reports in France revealed last week that it had signed a contract with ICE to help it identify and locate foreign citizens. ICE has been in the headlines because of controversy over how it operates, particularly after the killings of 2 people in Minneapolis. An emergency board meeting of Capgemini over the weekend decided to sell the subsidiary with immediate effect.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 386. Botswana 12.996. Kenya 128 shilling 453, and Zambia 19 kwacha 70. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there 5.25. Russia 75 rubles 956. India 91 rupees 61. China 61.95. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 16 rand 7 cents. 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold is trading at $5,183, while platinum is trading at $2,494 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $69.96 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. 60 years of broadcasting Africa to the world. Channel Africa, the African perspective. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam. Rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Nigeria's trade and investment relationship with Turkey is set for a major boost following President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's recent state visit to Ankara. According to Dele Oye, chairman of the Nigeria-Turkey Business Council, more than 9 bilateral agreements were signed across key sectors including higher education, defense, trade, diaspora cooperation and halal products. A development expected to significantly deepen economic ties between the two countries. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa has more.
Dele Oye, chairman of the Nigeria-Turkey Business Council, says Nigeria-Turkey trade is expected to top $10 billion after new agreements. But how realistic is the trade target, and which sectors are likely to drive the faster gains for Nigeria? Collins Nekwe is a senior international trade consultant.
It's pretty ambitious, but reflects strong political will and emerging commercial opportunities. Right now, annual bilateral trade is roughly $2 billion. So, to hit 10 billion would require doubling or more within a very, very short period, something that hinges on investments and implementation of the recent agreements signed between President Tinubu and President Erdogan. Realistically, an interim target of 5 billion seems more immediately achievable given current growth patterns and the launch of a joint economy and trade committee aimed at reducing investment risk and improving market access.
He says deeper Nigeria-Turkey trade is a step in the right direction, especially considering Nigeria's position under AFTA and its competitiveness.
As Nigeria grows its export base, especially in processed food, agriculture, and manufactured products, it strengthens its export competitiveness across African markets under AFTA's preferential terms. Turkey's use of Nigeria as a gateway to the broader African market is explicitly part of the strategy. And this positions Nigeria as a central hub rather than merely an endpoint market. Moreover, Turkey's commercial engagement differs from that of, China, the China-linked trade in a couple of ways. One, market diversification.
Political analyst Tukmen Terzi shares some of the risks and structural bottlenecks that could slow down Nigeria-Turkey trade despite these new agreements.
The current bilateral trade with Nigeria and Turkey around 2 billion, and with the President Tinubu's recent visit, they signed agreement in 9 different fields. So it is the bilateral trade going to be expected to be around $10 billion in the coming years. And Turkey is exporting to Nigeria machinery, equipment, and textile, manufacturing goods, and many others, defense. And Turkey is another issue. Turkey imports crude oil and petroleum products and agricultural products from Nigeria. This is also very important because Turkey has no energy resources and depend on the import.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
At 7:46 Central African time, let's go to Nigeria now, where the military there says it has killed Abu Khalid, a senior Boko Haram commander, along with 10 other militants in northeastern Borno state. Abu Khalid was reportedly the group's second in command in the Sambisa forest. The army says no soldiers were harmed, and operations continue against Boko Haram and ISWAP or ISWAP hideouts in the northeast. Jonathan James Liamgon, our correspondent in Nigeria, joins us now to unpack this. Jonathan, good morning. How are you this particular Monday? Jonathan, are you there? Okay, I think he just dropped his line, so we'll try and dial him up and get that conversation going.
6 decades strong, Channel Africa continues to inspire Africa and the world, proudly sharing
the African perspective.
As 2025 draws to a close, we pause to honor the spirits that connect us. The festive season reminds us of what truly matters: family, community, and unity. No matter where you gather or reflect, Channel Africa is with you. Bring your stories and voices that are shaped by the African perspective.
Something significant happened on this day. Asanda, you were a baby, I'm sure. I'm not even sure if you were born. No, you were a baby, yeah.
Yoga. Matseko is still trying to convince me and look me
No,
over.
I've done that already, and you're going to come now on the journey.
I will try.
From all of us to all of you, may your season be safe and peaceful. Channel Africa, the African perspective. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, let's try again on that chat in Nigeria. Jonathan James Liamgon, our correspondent there, joining us now to explain what this means, the Nigeria's military having killed a senior Boko Haram commander. Jonathan, how are you on this Monday?
And you?
Great, thank you very much. So who exactly is Abu Khalid? What is known about him? And how important was he to Boko Haram's operations?
Well, from what we've heard from Nigeria's military, they describe him as the master logistics coordinator. And in terms of hierarchy within Boko Haram, they describe him as being the second in command. They've been tracking him for a while now. Quite a lot of the top commanders, the military has either complete details about them or some vague details as to where they are. And from the military's own projection,
Are you still with us there, Jonathan? There seems to be some network issues there. Jonathan is on the line, but his line freezes as he tries to talk to us. So we'll drop the line and then try again. Jonathan, are you there?
okay. At what point did it? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you please continue on that first point that you were making? The phone froze a bit. We're definitely having challenges there connecting to Jonathan. We'll see if we can get him later, but let's take a short break for now.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Jonathan joining us from Nigeria, our correspondent there, Jonathan James Liam Gon. I think the line is a bit better now. We've switched to a different platform, Jonathan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very crystal
clear. You were explaining on that point, though, of how important Abu Khalid was to Boko Haram's operations. If you can maybe incorporate that question as you continue with what this means then for the Nigerian military.
So given the description of the military where they say he is the lead when it came to logistics for the terrorist group, they believe that this is one of those situations that they can describe as having crushed the head of the serpent. And with this, they say that the logistics that he coordinates, which is what has often given impetus or given a morale booster to the terrorists, they say that over the coming days, they hope and they believe that the terrorists will continue to be on the run, which is what they've described them to have been over the past couple of months. They say that the military has gained significant tempo and the military has things under control. However, that is the military's description of the situation on ground, because earlier, about 2 days before this particular attack, I do recall hearing the senator from that particular zone. His name is Mohamed Ndume. He actually was reaching out to offer some condolence to the military, having lost some soldiers in an earlier clash with the terrorists, and some soldiers and civilian, members of the defense team that is popularly known here as a civilian joint task force. They typically work with the military because they are very familiar with the local communities and they know how to get around, and they've helped the military accomplish a lot during the course of the campaign against the terrorists. So the senator did say that some soldiers had sadly been killed, but the military's perspective is that in this particular operation, no soldier's life was lost. Asanda?
Is that credible?
Yeah, I mean, so there have been quite about 3 or so operations that have happened, but you can certainly understand the military's perspective in projection of strength. The focus in terms of the statement that the military has put out. Also yesterday, when the Minister of Defense was speaking at a media outlet, his focus was about the military's success, which is very typical with the military's approach of communications. I've once asked why they do this. I mean, unofficially, what I was told was it is very important for the military to sustain morale boosting perspective to their operations as against always giving details about casualties from their side. Asanda?
What is known about the 10 other militants killed also in Borno State?
We asked, but there's been a vague description that none of them, they are generally regarded to just be just general members of the terror group. The commander himself, Abu Khalid, was the one whose identity was fully confirmed and verified to us.
What are the kind of risks that the military faces after such operations? Could they get heavier retaliation from the militants?
Typically, what we have seen has been a pattern. After such operations, sometimes on their way returning back to base, they would have IEDs that have been set up, and then some sort of operations that counter operation that comes against them. But in recent times, we haven't had much of that. What some security analysts have said is that it is one of two situations that are in the offing. Either the military has significantly decimated the militants, or what is happening is they go into what has happened before. They kind of go into sleeper cells, regroup, gather resources, and restructure their operations and attack again. And that is what we have seen in the about 17 years since the insurgency broke out in that part of the country.
What is the kind of impact that these military operations have on locals, particularly around the Sambisa forest? I know you mentioned that some of these communities do cooperate with the military to make sure that militants are captured.
Typically, what we have seen have been cases where when these militants do get back, in instances where they have gotten back, the communities pay dearly. We've seen a lot of people being lost in the civilian JTF. In particular, this axis where the militant was captured, which is the Sambisa area, because we're talking about a vast territory where the military has to cover. It stretches into hundreds and hundreds of kilometers in medium to dense level type vegetation. So what we've seen is communities sometimes completely evacuate, because when the militants do come back for reprisals, very few people are ever spared, and then they sometimes kidnap them and take them with them to be part of their labor force in their camps. But the military says that it is in control of a lot of this. And what we've seen the governor of that state, Babagana Zulum, do is to spearhead the return of communities back to their original habitations and to encourage them to resume life and to get back to farming, since most of them are agrarian.
Right. Boko Haram and ISWAP have proven resilient over the years. What do you think it's been so hard to defeat them completely?
Well, there are several factors. Like if I'm to quote the Minister of Defense, who while he was speaking yesterday, and even in previous comments while he was the Chief of Defense when he was in active service in the military, one of the things that he has often pointed out is that this particular warfare is not conventional warfare, and they are expected to comply with international standards, whereby they could have since ended this insurgency. But every time they make progress, international communities like international organizations like Amnesty, amongst other NGOs, do come and dwell on what they say is poor human rights records, and such has always hindered their operations. Of course, there's also the frequent cry of logistics and international instances where, like America, for instance, put Nigeria on a watch list where they wouldn't sell and approve for sale arms being made by America because of Nigeria's poor human rights records when it comes to rules of engagement. What the government or what the military and the Minister of Defense has said is that such things have been part of what, in fact, to kind of paraphrase him, he says, if they were given the chance to operate with full latitude, they would have since ended the insurgency. Asanda?
Thank you so much, Jonathan. We'll leave it there for now. We appreciate this update.
Always a pleasure talking to you. Have a nice day.
You do too. Thank you. Jonathan James Liamgon is our correspondent in Nigeria, giving us an update then on the military in the country, saying it has killed a senior Boko Haram commander who goes by the name of Abu Khalid, or who went by the name of Abu Khalid, and along with 10 other militants, and this in northeastern Borno state. This is Rise and Shine. Good morning. If you've joined us just now, we still have another hour to go. My name is Asanda Beda. Let's start off with our news. Here's Chandugo Ligege. It's 8 o'clock Central African time.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. The family of 36-year-old missing Somali businessman based in South Africa, whose car was swept away by strong currents in the river in Limpopo province, has taken it upon themselves to search for their relative. Businessman Nur Ali, together with a man whose identity is still unknown, were swept away while crossing an overflowing low-lying bridge 2 weeks ago. The vehicle has been retrieved about 300 meters downstream on Sunday last week. Family spokesperson Mohammed Ali says they want the body found so they can find closure.
Okay. He said, when you lose for somebody, dear brother, very valuable, and then you have no dead or alive, you don't know where is he the right moment, because if you find the body, you just forget and forgive for that point. But there is no way to find, and then it's very difficult to see whether it's dead or alive, and then back home, the family, mother, sisters, other brothers, they are worrying about people, they don't sleep well.
The Nigerian army says it's killed a Boko Haram commander and 10 members of the militant group in northeastern Borno state as the country intensifies its efforts to counter rising insurgency. The BBC's Paul Njie has more details.
The hunt for the Boko Haram commander Abu Khalid led the military through the group's hideouts in the Sambisa forest. As the second in command of the jihadist group, his role was central to Boko Haram's operations and logistical capabilities. But he and his soldiers were neutralized and their weapons and other items recovered. In a separate offensive in northwestern Zamfara state, soldiers said they foiled a plot by armed bandits to stage coordinated large-scale attacks on local communities.
Former South African President Jacob Zuma's name appears in newly released documents by the U.S. Justice Department, DOJ, in its latest tranche of Epstein files. The DOJ has published over 3 million additional pages in response to the Epstein Files Transparency Act signed into law by President Donald Trump last November. A series of emails makes reference to a dinner arranged at London's Ritz Hotel on March 5th, 2010, while Zuma was on a state visit to the UK. Showing Bryce Peace reports.
An email from a Mark Lloyd on March 4th, 2010 invites someone named Vera to a small dinner hosted for then-President Zuma, who is encouraged to attend to add some real glamour to the occasion. Another email then shows a response from someone who says she's honored to accept the invitation and describes herself as a Russian model who's lived in London for 2 years. An email purportedly from Epstein to British diplomat Peter Mandelson on March 5th, 2010 reads that Mark Lloyd was hosting Zuma the following day at the Ritz and that he had invited someone whose name was redacted but described as beautiful to attend. A March 6th email to Epstein the day after the referenced dinner from Mark Lloyd describes Zuma as being a more impressive character than was expected.
Also in the news, a new witness takes to the stand this morning at the Madlanga Commission investigating allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in South Africa's criminal justice system. This as the Commission enters day 51 of proceedings at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College in Pretoria. SABC's Batle Mota reports.
The Madlanga Commission has since delivered its first interim report to President Ramaphosa, who has instructed Acting Police Minister Firoz Katalia and National Police Commissioner General Fani Masimula to establish an investigating task team. The task team will probe all the individuals who have been implicated in corruption. They include General Liseja Sinona and Commissioner Julius Mkhwanazi, to name a few. While Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has testified before the Commission, the inquiry has not made a firm finding against him. I am Sibahle Mota in Pretoria.
And finally, South African singer Tyla has won her second Grammy, clinching the Best African Music Performance category. This is her second win in 3 years. She won it for Push to Start, released as part of her debut album in 2024, with her music cited for blending pop, R&B and amapiano. With this win, Tyla becomes the first person to win the category twice since its inception in 2024. That is all for now. For any stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Chandruko Ligege.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Our sports headline: Pakistan is said to boycott the T20 World Cup match against India. And former World Cup winner urged Bafana to prepare well for the tournament. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
Right, coming up in this third and final hour of Rise and Shine, we go to the World Laureate Summit in Dubai, and this is alongside the World Government Summit, and it's marking a historic integration of science and government. And this gathering has high-level forums and dialogue amongst those attending. At least 100 scientists, and they include Nobel laureates, winners of major global scientific prizes, and leaders of research institutions. They will be attending that meeting. So we'll find out in terms of what to expect on this gathering, maybe previous gatherings, and what they've yielded in terms of change within the fields of science and governance. We'll be joined by Professor Atangana, who is delivering a keynote address there. That story and more will be coming up, and you are tuned into Channel Africa. From the African perspective, Rise and Shine brings you news and current affairs. Connect with us on channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app, via mobile phone, on at Channel Africa 1. We live stream on YouTube there. That handle is also across the various other social media platforms where you can connect with us with your questions or your comments. My name is Asanda Beda.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126, and we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views, share your opinion, engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The World Laureate Summit is sitting in Dubai alongside the World Government Summit, marking a historic integration of science and government. The gathering features high-level forums and dialogue on artificial intelligence, biotechnology, quantum science, energy, climate and emerging technologies. This three-day summit is expected to discuss the roadmap for the future of basic science. At least 100 scientists, including Nobel laureates, winners of major global scientific prizes, and leaders of research institutions are attending the meeting. So to discuss this further, we're joined by Cameroonian mathematician Professor Abdon Atangana. He is attending the summit and will be delivering a keynote speech there. Professor Atangana, thank you for joining us. How are you on this Monday?
Thank you very much. I'm very well, Asanda.
We appreciate you making time to talk to us. And let's start here first. I mean, as we say in our introduction, this gathering will be a historic one as it blends the World Laureate Summit. It's coinciding, rather, with that, the World Governments Summit. Why is it important for this integration within the field of science? And maybe that could be a way of you giving us more background on this gathering.
Yes, it is very important because on one side, we have people that are doing science coming out with a new formula, innovation. And on the other hand, we have people that are taking decisions. So it's important for us to gather and stay together so that we should explain how we can take the world forward by using the knowledge that we are producing as scientists, discussing it with the government so that the government can take important decisions. So that is the reason why we are here. And on the other hand, as African person, I'm here to see what other people are doing to take their continent forward. And as a mathematician, I can also listen to people that are doing chemistry and to see what problem they have in their field and to see how I can come in to solve those problems. So that is the reason why we are here.
What are some of the current development challenges the gathering will seek to address? And I imagine there's quite a lot of discussions and topics that will be covered.
Yes, one of the topic is the emergence of artificial intelligence. How are we going to use artificial intelligence to better our research? On my side, as a mathematician, sometimes it takes us 2 or 3, 4 days to prove a theorem. Now with the artificial intelligence, we are able to prove those theorems in a few minutes. How are we, what are we going to do to make sure that the next generation should not misuse artificial intelligence? So those are the things that we are discussing here. We are also discussing how it is possible for researchers from all over the world to work together in interdisciplinary platform. So that is the reason why we are here, and those are the discussions that we are having. Education, like this morning, the president of Macedonia was talking about education, and one of my questions that I asked is, what is the role of education in making sure that the world see equality among human beings? Somebody from Africa should also see at the same level like somebody coming from Europe, discrimination. So those are the things that we are trying to discuss here.
As we said, you're going to be making one of the keynote addresses there, and particularly at the Youth or the Young Scientists Forum. So what will your focus be there?
Applied mathematics, let me give you the reason why I'm here. I'm here, first of all, because I'm one of the young fellow of World Academy of Science, and also I got a UNESCO award. And the reason why they invited me is because I have introduced a new concept that will change all mathematics. In particular, the concept of distance that was introduced many years ago. I have redefined it because the mathematics that we are using is rigid, is based on Euclidean geometry. And I introduced a new geometry that is going to be used to explain the fact that a mathematical figure can burn, a mathematical figure can change the form, what we call in mathematics transformation, what we call in mathematics deformation. So this is going to affect partial differential equation. It means that what people are going to use to model real world problem will change. People are going to, what we call trigonometry is going to change. So that is what I'm coming to present the world and tell the world that Africa is present, because we are in a summit with many people, only one representative from Africa. And so that is the reason why I'm here, and tell the rest of Africa that we should work extremely very hard, so that when there is a summit like this, we should have more than 10 people coming from our continent. So thank you. That is the reason why I'm here.
How are our young scientists doing on the African continent, and what role does science have as a responsibility to be the foundation for their way of shaping the global future?
Yeah, can I say that we are doing well? I cannot say that we are doing well, because there are many talents in Africa. As you can see, I'm here. I'm not here because I was supported. I'm here because I work hard, extremely very hard, every day, with the aim not to become #1 in the world in mathematics, but with the aim to say to the next generation, Africa will be present. So we are trying to do well, but we lack support from our government. So when you discuss with young people coming from other parts of the world, they will tell you, for example, I have a lab with 20 people working under me. I have this budget per year, but me, I don't have anything. I work by faith. I work trusting God. So it is important for African people to redirect their focus in science. You will see that most of the time, what we put priority on is football. When they speak about football, everybody is excited. But football cannot change our continent. Sport cannot change our continent. So we need to refocus our direction to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Fund young people to understand that the future is not only on entertainment, the future is on STEM. You will see countries like China, you will never see them speaking about football team, but you will always understand that they have discovered something new. Why are they discovering something new? It's because the government is putting more effort in science rather than sport.
Right, it's 15 minutes past 8 Central African time here on Rise and Shine, and you are still listening to Channel Africa, of course, still in conversation with Cameroonian mathematician Professor Abdon Atangana. He's attending the World Laureate Summit, which is sitting in Dubai alongside the World Government Summit, and this an integration of science and government, this gathering is. There's about 100 scientists in attendance there, including Nobel laureates, winners of major global scientific prizes, and leaders of research institutions who are attending the meeting. So, Professor, you touched on some of the challenges faced then by our young African researchers, and we'll talk in terms of how can we tackle those. But let's talk about the opportunities that science and technology has brought forward in terms of how it informs governance and economic systems, especially in Africa. What has progress done there, in your view?
It is a technical question. As a mathematician, it is a very technical question. But I can say, for example, in South Africa, the government of South Africa has tried to do something, putting in place what we call National Research Fund. And we can see progress in terms of the project that the project that they are try to fund. And I think that we should continue putting more effort and making sure that priority should be focused on science.
So let's go back then to the challenges faced by our African researchers and scientists. You mentioned one of them as being government does not really support the STEM subjects in terms of those who are out in the field and need to start work. What can be done around that issue?
No, it is very simple. I was in China. I was invited to participate in a very big congress in China. And I saw the government was talking about core science. You will notice that nowadays people don't put more effort in funding mathematics, in funding chemistry, core chemistry. People believe that it is important to only fund a topic that, for example, something that will give us solution of tomorrow, which is wrong. You know, everything starts from the core science, how to formulate a formula, how to formulate a structure, chemical structure. So everything starts from there. And other countries are doing the same. They put a lot of money there. So most of the time in our country, what they say is that, what is the importance of mathematics? Whereas mathematics is the engine of everything. You cannot become a good chemist, a good doing geology or whatever without having some background in mathematics. So I think that as China is doing now, putting more focus on core science, the government in Africa should continue or start putting more focus on core science so that when their people will acquire that knowledge in pure mathematics, then they will be able to apply it and create new technology.
We know that the world faces a lot of instability and uncertainty around, rising development as well, and uncertainty on that. But therein also lie opportunities, specifically within the science fraternity, to transform and turn these challenges into positives. So in what ways would you say that these particular opportunities can be created? You cite the example of China there in a few points. Should we be looking to China again to turn the challenges in terms of our transformation in governance, the uncertainty and instability the world sees, into opportunities?
No, we should not look at China. Africa should not be people that consume what other people have done. Africa have to look at their own problem, put together people that are able to solve those problems, discuss with the government such that, we will be able to solve our problem using our own skill, using our own solution, because we produce also knowledge. Although we produce 1% of the knowledge in the world, although being one of the largest continents. So I think that Africa should not look at China. Africa should not look at the United States. Africa should not look at Europe. Africa should look at Africa. What problem do we have in our continent? Who is able to solve that problem? Whether it's from Morocco, whether it's from Cameroon, whether it's from South Africa, we put him on the table so that we should solve that problem with the help of the government.
So as we look to Africa then for our own solutions within our continent, global cooperation is also something that will be important. I know you mentioned that one of those things that you are glad to have been in the gathering for is to be a representation for Africa, and we need more representation in gatherings such as these. But what is required in your view in terms of global collaboration to ensure that real change is brought about through the field of science?
Let me tell you something. When we talk about global collaboration, you must first start putting something on the table in your own house. When you have that thing, you will be able to present it to other people. We cannot start going to global, to speak about global collaboration when we are not able to produce knowledge. What is going to happen? We are going to be there as kids to listen to what people have achieved or have introduced. It is better for us to start putting more effort to construct our scientific ecosystem in Africa. When we have then become very strong, we will be able to discuss with other people. Of course, what I'm saying here is I'm not saying that we should not collaborate now, but I'm saying that we should put more effort so that the problem Chinese solve in their country is suitable for their country. We should be able to solve the problem that are suitable for Africa. Then we will then be able to discuss with the rest of the world about how we can, they can use our solution in their place, and we also use their solution in our place.
Professor, please stay with us. We're going to take a short break. We continue our conversation after this with Professor Abdon Atangana, who is a Cameroonian mathematician.
Call us on +27 63 406 9126 and contribute to the conversation. 60 years of Channel Africa, your trusted voice, your African perspective into the future.
Ukatili wa kijinsia unaharibu maisha na kutenga jamii. Hutokea nyumbani, shuleni, kazini na mara nyingi kwa ukimya. Lakini hauwezi kuendelea. Ukiona, ongea. Ikiwa unaumia, funguka, kwa sababu kutofanya lolote sio chaguo. Sikiliza vituo vyote 19 vya redio kuanzia Jumatano ya tarehe 23 Julai kwenye mijadala, ushauri, tamthilia, maonyesho ya elimu na mahojiano na wataalamu, manusura, watunga sheria na nchi nzima iliyoathirika na ukatili wa kijinsia kwenye vituo vyako pendwa vya redio. Piga simu 0800 428 ili kuripoti unyanyasaji au kupata msaada. GBV ikomeshwe na wewe. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na shirika la SABC.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
On Rise and Shine, we continue our conversation with Professor Abdon Atangana, who is a Cameroonian mathematician. He's attending the World Laureate Summit in Dubai, and this is in coinciding with the World Government's Summit, and it's an integration there of science and government with 100 scientists in attendance, including Nobel laureates, winners of major global scientific prizes, and leaders of research institutions. As you can imagine, there'll be a lot of forums held there in dialogue around the fields of science that will be touching on artificial intelligence, biotechnology, quantum science, energy, climate, and emerging technology. So the professor will be delivering a keynote address there. We did touch a little bit on what his focus will be as he speaks to the Young Scientists Forum. But Professor, and thank you for staying with us. But let's continue then on this point because we were mentioning the opportunities that can arise from some of the challenges that we see and that science can spearhead in terms of turning those challenges into opportunities. Emerging technologies, let's talk about those. How can they be developed in a responsible manner?
Yeah, emerging technology, this morning, yesterday we were discussing about artificial intelligence. And we were asking ourselves the question, how can we use it actually to improve our technology, to make sure that we introduce new things that will make our environment very good. And as a mathematician, what we do in mathematics is to produce new knowledge, to introduce new formula that can be used to be transformed and then model things that happen in the reality. So mathematicians need to use this new tool that is artificial intelligence to create new model, new formula that are adapted to the reality that we have today. So we were discussing about it in physics, in chemistry also. I saw several professors were talking that they were saying that they are using artificial intelligence now to come out with a new structure in chemistry, how to deal with cancer, for example, how to deal with pollution, for example. So I think that the big problem that we are facing with this artificial intelligence is that some people, it can also hallucinate. That means that if you don't have knowledge in the field, you will be able to produce maybe results that are not correct. So I think that a regulation in this for artificial intelligence should be done so that we teach our younger one how to use artificial intelligence, what is the limit, and where the human being come in. And how can we use it actually, to enhance our environment?
What will it take then for those regulations to become a reality so that collaboration between governance and the fields of science and researchers, but also in ensuring that there is still some kind of independence for the scientists themselves to carry the work out the way they need to?
No, let me tell you something, Asanda. The problem we have in the world is that I'm not saying that politicians are not very intellectual. Politicians have to listen to scientists because I'm the one who created the mathematics. I'm the one who is creating the formula. And I will tell the politician how that formula can be used, how that formula can be taught to a younger one. The same thing with people that are doing chemistry. So we have to sit on the table between academic and politician, and we tell them what is supposed to be done for the regulation to be perfect for our world.
In terms of the future then, let's touch on some of the topics that will be covered. Things like quantum science, energy and climate. And we know that our continent is quite heavy on agricultural production, agricultural activity. How can these be integrated into that field to make sure that we do find ourselves in the top maybe 5? I don't know how far in the future that can get us. And we're competing with countries like Germany and the US and China when it comes to our agriculture space. So how do we harness quantum science, energy and climate?
I don't like to speak about a topic that I'm not good on. This is a topic that is a little bit far from my area of expertise. But I think that if there are African people that are specialized in this topic, especially African Academy of Science, I think that the government should actually consider African Academy of Science to put this discussion on the table so that we bring scientists from this field and we discuss about this particular issue, so that we should not be always as the spirit of paternalism, where the European people tell us, you have to do like this for your agriculture, you have to do like this for your agriculture. They don't know the reality of our soil. They don't know the reality of our ecosystem. So it is up to African people that are doing agriculture to sit and come out with the plan, so that we should be not the last continent, but at least among the 2 or 3 first to compete.
Your closing remarks then, Professor, just before we let you go.
The closing remark is the following. We are here more than 100 scientists. I think that I'm the only representative from Africa. And that is a wake call for African people. Some people were telling me yesterday, congratulations, Professor, you are there to represent them. I told them that no, I am disappointed on myself, because for 100 people, we are supposed to see at least 20 African scholars that represent the continent, not a young boy like me. So I'm calling on African researchers to work extremely very hard, very hard, so that this narrative should change, so that Africa should not be considered as a singularity, but Africa should be considered as a continent that contributes in terms of science, innovation, technology, and mathematics. And I call on the government to put more effort in empowering young African people, not to think that to become TikTok specialist is important, or footballer, or a star, something like that, but to make sure that African people become scientists, get Nobel Prize, get Turing Prize, so that we should also be able, the next Laureate Summit, we should be able to be represented, 20 of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it again, Professor. And do have safe travels when you do come back home, or when the summit is done. But in the meantime, enjoy your stay there in Dubai.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Abdon Atangana is attending the World Laureate Summit. That's alongside the World Government Summit. It's taking place in Dubai. It's a 3-day summit expected to discuss the roadmap for the future of basic science, and scientists having been there or joining it, about 100 of them. And Professor Atangana is also going to be delivering a keynote speech there at the summit, but on the particular gathering of the Young Scientists Forum. 8:30 Central African Time it is. Let's get our news headlines. Here is Chandugo Likeke.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. These are your headlines. The U.S. has declared a stark policy shift towards 3 West African countries which are battling Islamist insurgents and whose military governments have cut defense ties with France and turned towards Russia. The family of 36-year-old missing Somali businessman based in South Africa, whose car was swept away by strong currents in a river in Limpopo province, has taken it upon themselves to search for their relative. And the Nigerian army says it's killed a Boko Haram commander and 10 members of the militant group in northeastern Borno State as the country intensifies its efforts to counter rising insurgency. A full bulletin follows at 9 a.m. Central African Time.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's catch you up with the world of sports, and we say good morning to Fikile Lingwati, who has that update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
First up, it's football news. Former French World Cup winning captain Marcel Desailly has urged Bafana Bafana to prepare thoroughly and perform from the outset as they set their sights on the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Desailly lifted the World Cup in 1998 alongside football greats such as Zinedine Zidane and Thierry Henry. He emphasized that strong performances in the first 2 matches are crucial for building confidence, belief and momentum at the tournament, which will be jointly hosted by the United States, Mexico and Canada. Desailly explains.
Prepare yourself to straight away perform. Why you have to perform straight away is because through that performance on the first two match, you get the confidence. And through the confidence, you can have the belief that brings you to another level. So you need to prepare yourself very well before. Because South Africa, they don't have that big individuals that we were having, like Zidane or Thierry Henry. They have a collective, yes, they have the captain who is also the one that will lead the whole team, but you need to prepare yourself very well, be fit, physically and mentally and disciplined.
Desai, alongside football legends Piwe Shabalala, graced both events in Pretoria and Johannesburg, amplifying the World Cup fever that has descended on the country. Desai emphasized the importance of winning the first two opening matches of the tournament to calm down the nerves.
All together at the same time needs to be at their best to be able to perform, and something will happen, I'm sure. And the first two matches are key, absolutely key, on the confident aspect.
Now, netball news. The South African national netball team, the Spar Proteas, has recorded an historic 2-1 Test Series victory over England. The Spar Proteas beat the Roses 65-50 in the third and final Test match at the Ellis Park Indoor Arena in Johannesburg on Sunday. The home side defended like Trojans and applied pressure on the visitors' goal shooters in the first quarter. The Roses could only convert 60% of their opportunities to South Africa's 94%. Proteas had a 7-goal lead after their first quarter, more than double that margin by halftime, and then held on for victory. And finally, boxing news. Undefeated Shakur Stevenson captured a world championship in the 4th division after shutting out fellow American Teofimo Lopez Jr. to win the WBO junior welterweight title at New York's Madison Square Garden. Stevenson, who won Olympic silver in 2016, frustrated his opponent with straight rights to the body and held off Lopez's late counter-offensive with accurate shots from his left hand. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, File Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
One of the conversations we'll be having on Rise and Shine is on the Foundation for Rights of Expression and Equality, Free SA. They are raising concerns. So the concerns are around proposed regulations, and these regulations being linked to South Africa's hate crimes and hate speech law. So they have some concerns in terms of how our constitutional rights in the country could be risked because of these draft amendments or proposed amendments. So we'll be finding out about them and just delving deeper into why they have the concerns they have and what exactly these draft regulations provide for.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa 1. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa 1. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
From the world of economics is Tabiso Lehuku standing by with our update. It's time for our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
A very good morning. Independent economist Lisa Kruger says that the resilience of South African salary earners is as a result of improved economic conditions. Kruger says the improvement comes at the backdrop of companies seeing increased profit margins.
The resilience of net salaries, despite multiple challenges in the South African economy in 2025, is a reflection of the gradual improvement in economic activity observed. Real GDP growth for 2025 should end at about 1.3% compared to the previous year's 0.5%, so almost double. And that additional economic activity resulted in companies, increasing their profits and have been in a better space to offer good salary increases during the course of 2025.
The South African rand lost its footing after the greenback appreciated against a basket of currencies. The JSE was swayed by volatile precious metal prices, with the all-share index shedding more than 4% at Friday's closing bell. A more than 10% decline in the top 10 resources index and 11% increase or a decrease in the precious metals and mining index also weighed on the rand. It is currently trading at 16 rand 23 to the US dollar. The Gauteng Provincial Finance and Economic Development member of the Executive Council, Lebogang Maile, has urged communities in South Africa, businesses and government departments to pay for municipal services. He says non-payment is crippling municipalities' finances and affecting their ability to deliver basic services such as water and sanitation across the province. Maile has called for urgent compliance to help stabilize municipal budgets and keep essential services running. He addressed the media in Johannesburg.
We also want to urge municipalities to work on the credibility of their billing systems, because if they don't work on the credibility of their billing systems, some of these problems will persist.
Mozambique's President Daniel Chapo has opened a 2,000 metric ton per year graphite processing plant. This as the country boosts output of the battery mineral. Mozambique is one of the world's top producers of graphite, which is an excellent conductor of heat and electricity and is used in batteries for electric vehicles and mobile phones. The French tech company Capgemini says it's selling one of its subsidiaries in the United States after a row over its work for the Border Immigration Agency ICE. French lawmakers, including Finance Minister Roland Lescure, had asked the company to shed light in the contract amid concern over the tactics used by ICE agents following the fatal shooting of 2 U.S. citizens in Minnesota last month. The BBC's Peter Hunt has the details.
Capgemini operates in about 50 countries, but it's squirming under the spotlight over the activities of its US subsidiary, Capgemini Government Solutions. News reports in France revealed last week that it had signed a contract with ICE to help it identify and locate foreign citizens. ICE has been in the headlines because of controversy over how it operates, particularly after the killings of 2 people in Minneapolis. An emergency board meeting of Capgemini over the weekend decided to sell the subsidiary with immediate effect.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 386. In Botswana it's at 12 pula 996. Kenya 128 shilling 453, and Zambia 19 kwacha 70. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5 ruble 25. Russia 75 rubles 956. India 91 rupees 61. China 61.95. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 16 rand 7 cents, 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold $5,183 and platinum $2,494 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $69.96 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Thabiso Lohoko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store. For 60 years, Channel Africa has connected the continent. Celebrate the journey. Celebrate the African perspective. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
At 8:43 Central African Time, we'll take a look at this story now. The Foundation for Rights of Expression and Equality, Free SA, has raised concerns over proposed regulations linked to South Africa's hate crimes and hate speech law. The group warns that the draft rules could threaten privacy rights, blur the line between criminal hate speech and protected expression, and open the door to government overreach. More than 400 citizens have backed its call for the regulations to be revised. And for more now, we're joined by Paul Maritz, who is director at Free SA. Paul, good morning to you, and thanks for making time to talk to us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with you this morning.
Great, it's our pleasure. So one of Free SA's main concerns about the draft hate speech regulations is that it could threaten privacy rights. In what ways could it do this?
In various ways. We're really concerned about this. First and foremost, it's very important to note that in any democracy, free speech is the one tool that you can use to constantly keep your democracy alive. Why do we say this? Well, because the moment that a government makes a mistake or starts being oppressive, the best way to make sure that changes is at the ballot box. But people can only change it at the ballot box if they have information. So any law that seems as if it could be used to silence certain voices, voices that dissent, voices that do not agree with the powers that be, those voices need to be protected. And any law that seems as if it wants to oppress or can oppress those voices must be seriously criticized. So ideologically, I would say that, and we can get into the details of this law if you'd like that.
Where does one draw the line between criminal hate speech and protected expression? The line that Free SA says is blurred by these proposed regulations.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that should be the first question that we ask when it comes to this. Now, what the law is currently proposing and what the regulations haven't mediated in any way is at the moment that I feel personally that you have harmed me. So this is what 4.1a of the law says. The moment that I feel that you have harmed me in a way that substitutes hate speech, then I can go to a local police office and I can open a docket. And there's no threshold. There's nothing stopping that case from being opened. But the point is, me being offended doesn't constitute hate speech. Now, in America in the 90s, Bill Clinton would have defined it as the moment that you call violence upon someone, you say that someone should be harmed, whether that's physically or emotionally, then that calls for hate speech. The problem with that is that nowadays, maybe in the last 10 years, we've seen that people being offended is often called violence. So someone who will simply be misidentified for whatever reason will say, well, violence has been acted upon my person. And the moment that we do that, we simply don't allow people to offend us anymore or to say things that we don't agree with, and that necessarily leads to an oppressive system. Whether that becomes an oppressive regime later, that's obviously a problem as well. But in the immediate, it becomes a system where people can't express themselves and can't differ from each other, and that means we can't go forward because we can't point to mistakes that are happening.
How do you respond to arguments that stricter regulations are necessary to protect vulnerable communities from hate speech and hate crimes?
Well, I would say that that's a very easy argument, but I would argue that those vulnerable communities, what they really need is a voice, and they need to be able to say this and that politician didn't do their job, this and that police officer affected me in that or that way, and that's going to call for a more open free speech legislation, a more open approach to free speech, people being able to say what they really want to say. What this law is currently doing in the 2023 Act and what these new regulations aren't stopping is it's simply doing the exact opposite. It's making people scared, and it's going to really open the door for people to very easily be sued. Now we're seeing things like this in the USA and the UK, where for tweets or for something that just simply someone didn't like, you're all of a sudden being sued for hate speech. So I would argue that those vulnerable communities, what they really need is a voice. And this legislation will, in fact, make their voices silent. It won't elevate those voices. And therefore, we see that as highly problematic.
Free SA has warned about the potential for abuse and surveillance and censorship. What safeguards are currently missing that could prevent this?
Well, a large amount. So just to give you an idea, even the best tech companies in the world, I'm talking about Facebook and Google and so on, they have breaches, maybe one every 5 or 6 years, where someone hacks them and gets access to the data. And then you'll get an email that says, please change your password, there's been a hack or whatever. Now, governments historically have not been as tech savvy as these companies. And so now all of a sudden, what this law is calling for and what the regulation seems to imply is that our data, our personal data, meaning where you live, how many kids you have, how old you are, what you weigh, what color your eyes is, typically the information that criminals can use to hack your bank accounts and stuff, that data will be available in sort of a mass database, and that database will be accessible from any police office or anyone that has any relevant reason to access that database. Now, first and foremost, this is going to create a massive administrative burden for the police because, I mean, they already have a few resources all over the continent, maybe especially in South Africa, and now all of a sudden, they're going to have to spend a lot of time in administration to read things into the system, but the system is then going to be broadly available, which, to be honest with you, South Africa currently has the worst cybersecurity in the world, and creating this system, we just think it's very, very dangerous at the moment, and it could lead to future danger because now your personal data is never going to change throughout your life, right? Your ID number, the number of your current passport is going to be relevant for 10 years, your height, the color of your eyes, whatever, those things are going to be relevant forever. So once a criminal has them for the rest of your life, you're basically looking over your shoulder. And we find this highly problematic. Now, current POPI law is supposed to sort of mediate that, but still these regulations call for the collection of very sensitive data, including HIV status, including sexuality, things that we can't understand why a mass database of the police should have that in the first place. And it hasn't been clarified, like I said, in the proposed regulations, which is why we stand against them.
Right, and you are standing against them alongside 400 South Africans who have supported your petition. Are you still open with that petition? Can people still sign on?
No, so government comments closed on the 28th of January, and we want to thank those people that did have their voices heard. I do want to say that I don't think this is going to go away. So we want to call on citizens all over the continent, but maybe especially in South Africa, to have your voices heard. And remember that democracy isn't something where we go once every 5 years and draw a cross next to someone's name or face. Democracy is continuous. We have to constantly be calling upon our politicians, the people that we elected, to really do what they promised they were going to do. And in this case, it was to protect our freedoms, and they're not doing that, so we need to constantly be reminding them that they need to do their jobs.
Paul, thank you so much for your time again. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. That's Paul Maritz, Director at Free SA. They have raised concerns about proposed amendments or draft regulations on South Africa's hate crimes and hate speech law.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective. As Africa renews, so does its voices. 60 years of Channel Africa.
Ritmos e cultura. Com Jacob Tivani.
Meus ouvintes do Ritmos e Cultura, hoje em linha com uma das grandezas da música moçambicana, porque não? Ele que é um dos kings da Marra Benta, uma bermuda in the building.
É um prazer enorme estar a fazer parte deste programa. Deixe-me só saudar. Boa tarde a todos os ouvintes que me ouvem neste preciso momento. Meu nome é Uma Bermuda, de Alau Fanelo Estarapo, Gajo Aguda Tanhela Mabiscato. Eu vou saudar de uma maneira diferente. Ah, tita buia mwanango, tiduma tifika giane. Ah, tita buia mwanango, tiduma tifika giane. Ani motive lo ababa yena otiva mina haikonama. Ani motive lo anona yena otiva wahimbo watwa. Cá estou eu, irmão, para conversarmos, para falarmos um pouco de tudo. Estou aqui, estou aberto. Eu estou muito feliz porque é a primeira vez que eu falo nesta rádio, falo para os ouvintes, então estou muito feliz.
Ritmos e cultura com Jacob Tivani. Todos os domingos, das 20 às 21 horas.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
Weekdays on Channel Africa after Rise and Shine comes On the Move. This is a show hosted by Palesa Tao and Benjamin Mushatama. Palesa joining us now on this Monday to tell us what to expect. Happy new month, 2nd February.
Yes.
How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, we're going to start off the conversations today like this. You know, in a world where social media just doesn't forget and things can stay there forever, being linked to a public scandal or accusations can actually change your life forever, because even if you're trying to move on, the internet can continue holding on to that reputation that, continues to follow you. So today we're going to be speaking to a brand reputation specialist about how to actually move forward with your life once that has taken place, and how you can maintain your dignity post any kind of scandal or accusation that has been linked to social media.
Right. It's unfortunate that it's not always up to the individual to move on necessarily in the public opinion, the cancel culture. All those things can just be tumbling blocks in that situation.
Absolutely. So we'll find out exactly how.
Yeah, people have dealt with depression as a result of such things.
That's so true.
Right.
We're going to move on to our African View. That's our Monday debate. And today we're finding out, do schools overvalue certificates and undervalue talent?
Okay.
Yeah, because we want that piece of paper, but everyone is sort of learning in a very linear way. It doesn't seem like, your children's natural talents, their natural abilities hold any value within the schooling system, but does it, right? That's going to be the debate. And of course, we're going to be bringing two people in to go over that one.
Yeah, it's interesting that even in 2026, schools do prioritize academics over creativity.
Correct.
Because kids are not intelligent in the same way, but they're all intelligent in their ways. All the different types of gifts, I think, should be celebrated.
I think so as well.
Sports get celebrated even more than art. If a child is good in art, nobody really cares.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's like a favorite pastime, a little hobby.
Yeah, no, that's a very important question. And I think as parents as well, before you even start to look at the kind of schooling you want your child to have, those are the questions you need to ask yourselves.
Yeah.
All right. So that's coming up on the Move here on Channel Africa with Palesa Tao and Benjamin Mushatama. Stay tuned.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Media Institute of Southern Africa, MISA, in Botswana, has condemned the emerging threats by the powers that be in the Southern African country aimed at undermining media freedom. In recent months, journalists have been subjected to sustained public attacks, including accusations of misinformation, unethical conduct, and poor professionalism. Shingirai Matondo reports from Gaborone.
The reason I keep suggesting to them they should stop what they are doing, this fake news, these falsehoods that tarnish people's reputations, impair their dignity and their fame, those things are criminal. You can actually be taken to court and imprisoned for writing falsehoods about a person and tarnishing their reputation and their fame and their dignity. I'm admonishing them because very soon they will end up in prison. So our journalists are committing crimes by the day.
This is President Duma Boko speaking about how journalists in Botswana could be prosecuted and probably incarcerated for what he calls publishing falsehoods about government and individuals. In response to these accusations and threats from the Southern African country's citizen, Media Institute of Southern Africa, Mr. Botswana chairperson Thomas Nkoma said intimidation of this nature is unwelcome in a democracy like Botswana.
Such conduct is unacceptable in a constitutional democracy. Of serious concern are reports that Radio Botswana broadcaster Litumeletse Munsusa was removed from the Masasele morning program following a tightly controlled broadcast centered on the Constitutional Court. If confirmed, this constitutes a direct assault on editorial independence and represents political interference within the public broadcasting.
Nkoma, who doubles as a member of the MISA Regional Governing Council, said the Botswana chapter rejects any attempt to conflate criticism with disloyalty or journalism with hostility. He said scrutiny of power is not subversion, and it is the very purpose of the media in a democratic society. According to Nkoma, the persistent framing of the media as antagonistic enemies rather than constitutional partners erode public trust, chills investigative reporting, and discourages honest public debate. Mr. Botswana therefore called Boko and his administration to create a conducive environment for journalists to practice their profession without fear or favor.
Therefore, Mr. Botswana calls on government to immediately reaffirm its commitment to press freedom and editorial independence, protect journalists, particularly those within state media, from political interference and intimidation, ensure transparency regarding personnel decisions linked to editorial content, and accelerate meaningful legal and policy reforms to safeguard media freedom and sustainability.
Last year, delegates at the Southern Africa Media Summit 2025 found safety of journalists and the survival of independent media are at critical juncture in Southern Africa, issuing a united call for immediate action to combat unlawful surveillance, online attacks, and rising authoritarian practices. Reporting for Channel Africa from Gaborone here in Botswana, this is Ashingra Madondo.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
This was Rise and Shine, because now we say goodbye, but we'll be back with you tomorrow at 6 a.m. until 9. So make sure you tune in for that. Stay with Channel Africa as programming continues from the African perspective. Coming up is On the Move. My name is Asanda Beda. It's bye-bye from us for now, and I'll be back with you tomorrow.
For 60 years, Channel Africa celebrates 2026 with the African perspective. Channel Africa is moving